Sick of getting killed trying to do missions as you progress through each floor? Wish you could just force other people to do that stuff for you? Well then, do I have the character for you. How yin's doing? I'm Ian, and this is my Streets of Rogue character guide to the Slavemaster.
Oh, harder, Daddy! Son?
The Slavemaster is unlocked via buying 4 slaves across any number of runs. Yes, I said buy. You can do that. You can buy slaves. No one said you had to kill the slave masters. You could just buy the slave and free them via dialogue. Now, as you lament the lives you took from slave masters just doing their job, I shall read the slave master's description. The warmest, gentlest slave master one could ever hope to have. Joins fellow slave masters each night to serenade their slaves with a cappella lullabies. This is followed by a mandatory cuddle session. As for the form-fitting leather, well, everyone has their thing, okay? Now let's get into the meat and potatoes of this BDSM flesh peddler. Your special ability is called Enslave. Very easy to understand. You place a slave collar on someone and make them your slave. Some things to remember about this. Firstly, you can only enslave individuals under the status effects of electrocuted, frozen, or dizzy. Secondly, slaves explode upon death. We'll get into how this can be used to your advantage later, but for now, just remember that you don't want to be standing next to them when they kick the bucket. Lastly, remember that slaves may attempt a mutiny against you in order to gain their freedom. If this happens, I advise getting a safe distance away from them before activating your slave helmet remote to manually detonate them. You can also use this to blast down walls in order to bypass building security, or on foes that are about to kill your slaves before they have a chance to run away. Or just throw your slaves into a crowded room with your neutralized target and use them as suicide bombers. Just remember that your remote can only be used 3 times a floor before it needs to recharge. On the subject of your starting gear, in addition to the remote, you also have a taser, which inflicts the electrocuted status effect on individuals, allowing you to enslave them. Just remember there's a cooldown on each shot, so you can't go firing at multiple targets in rapid succession. If your taser's on cooldown and you need someone taken care of, just pull out your second starting item, the axe, which can liquefy most foes that get in your way. However, with an above average of 3 in firearms, I advise trying to use the taser to enslave everyone who attacks you if possible, because while your other stats are an average of 2, the power to enslave a neutralization target and then send them on a suicide mission to complete a different mission is far above average. Just be sure as few people see you as possible. This is because of your ideological clash trait. Ever wanted the bounty on your head disaster to occur on every floor, even floors that already have active disasters? No? Too bad, that's happening anyway. You can't even remove it at an augmentation booth. Trust me, I tried. On the plus side, cops don't care how you deal with these individuals that attack you due to this trait, unless you accidentally hit said cop with whatever weapon you decide to deal with the aggressor with. You also have the team building expert trait, which allows you to have 3 slaves, followers, instead of the default 1. Sadly, however, your last trait is a flat negative, called poor hand-eye coordination. This makes it so that you're doing something bar takes longer. This means that enslaving people takes longer, and this can be an annoyance when you go about completing your big quest. Speaking of which... Your big quest is Catch 'em All. It's exactly the same as the cannibals, except that you enslave the specified NPC instead of eating them. For those who didn't watch or don't remember the cannibal guide video I've already done, a specific class of NPC will be marked in the map menu alongside your big quest. Once you have found and enslaved an NPC of that specified class, you must escort them to the entrance or exit elevator. If all NPCs of the specified class go extinct before you can succeed in your big quest, you will not fail, but instead, much like the previously covered shapeshifter, the classes needed will change. Only once all NPCs on the floor have been killed will you fail this quest. A few words of advice for the Slavemaster before closing out. Firstly, the enslavement process, much like the cop's handcuffs, can be interrupted by enemies attacking you, so make sure that there aren't any allies to the individual you're trying to enslave in line of sight of you when you go about enslaving individuals. Since your slaves explode upon death, the Blast Survivor trait is an amazing ability to have on the Slavemaster. And remember, your slaves are expendable pawns. Building has tight security? Send a few slaves in there to soften things up. Need to blow a hole in the wall but are out of explosives? Tell your slaves to stand still for a moment next to it and then set off the detonator. What's that? Sent a slave to kill a neutralization target and now they're running away in fear because they're at low health? Well then just set off the detonator and kill both the slave and the target all in one fell swoop. All in all, I give the Slavemaster a Pokemon trainer out of 10. If you wish to play Pokemon with the unwilling NPCs of every floor and use the ideological clash trait to artificially turn the world into a bunch of tall grass, then the Slavemaster is the perfect character for you. That's all for now. Like the video if you did, subscribe if you don't want to miss the next one. I've been Ian, and this has been my Streets of Rogue character guide to the Slavemaster. And stay tuned, the scientist is coming up next.